Oh, my nigga Diamond K on the check-in. Salute Diamond K, radioonfire.com. Let me check on his site. Hold on a second. That's my homie from B-More.
You are now streaming worldwide on radioonfire.com and the Radio on Fire app.
Diamond K, are you moving to the ATL? I know you were talking about that, man, before the pandemic.
Giving you more talk, more news, and more music. It's Radio on Fire.
Okay, there you go. RadioOnFire.com. That's the homie Diamond K.
Thank you for listening to Radio on Fire.
I see High Roller Records, Jay Jackson Live, The Diamond K Show, of course. Yeah, folks, make sure you check out my homie, RadioOnFire.com. That's Diamond K.
Follow us on all social media at Radio on Fire.
All right. Happy Friday. Welcome back to Diamond K Show. Of course, Radio on Fire talks to America through digital news broadcast and social media content. We are a rising multimedia platform generating over 350,000 listeners and viewers per month through our audio and video streams from politics, breaking news, celebrity info, sports talk, pop culture, and much more. Radio on Fire keeps our audience covered. And of course, Diamond K in here, as always. Glad that you could join us. And a lot of things. We got a jam-packed show for you tonight. And of course, I can't go too much further without acknowledging the 19th anniversary of the 9/11 attack. And definitely we're going to talk about that tonight. Also, an Arkansas man gets 2 life sentences totaling 835 years for killing an off-duty police officer. We'll talk about that. Also, the MTA gets $49.3 million grant money from the Federal Transit Administration. We're going to talk about that. Also, the Fed's appeal court hearings and the challenges to the spy plane program. We're going to talk about that, which has been a disaster. Also, Dak Prescott, Skip Bayless. These are some sports figures. Of course, Dak Prescott from the Dallas Cowboys has come forward and talked publicly about battling depression. And Skip Bayless, who is a talking head, a sports commentator, he has been dismissive of Dak Prescott coming forward talking about his depression. So a lot of people rub the wrong way as it relates to that. And we will also be joined today for the interview by independent candidate for mayor of Baltimore, Bob Wallace. He's going to join us and talk about his campaign and why he wants Baltimoreans to vote for him for mayor. So all that and a lot more. I am very excited to get the opportunity to talk with him about that. A lot of things. We're going to come back momentarily. So as I said, the 9/11 attacks, when I think back to that time period, so it was a Tuesday, and I know that clearly and can always remember that because I was managing a record store, and Jay-Z's The Blueprint album came out that day. And so we were selling the album, and it was things were just starting to pick up. And then we started to hear words, of course, this is before social media. We started to hear words from people that something had happened in New York. And I had a TV in the store, and we turned the TV on, and then we started to see the aftermath of the impact of the planes hitting. And it was just, it was a terrible thing. So I'm in Mondawmin Mall, which is a big mall in Baltimore City. And so it's still early, you know what I mean? Relatively early considering, how days work. It's early. They decide that they're going to close the mall, and we tried to stay open as long as possible because I knew there was going to be a busy day because we had this high profile release coming out. But there was fear. There is a small World Trade Center in downtown Baltimore, small compared to, I mean, it's a high rise building, but small compared to the ones that were in New York. So there were fears of were they targeting these buildings? Were they targeting high buildings? It was mass confusion. No one really had a lot of information. No one knew a lot of stuff. We only knew that planes had been crashed into the buildings. Buildings had fallen. People obviously had perished. And Baltimore, for all that was happening here at the time, Baltimore was in a state of mourning, a state of shock, and there was a lot of pandemonium and fear. So they finally closed the mall, and people were just outside, nowhere to go. They stopped running buses, and kids were out of school. It was just mass confusion because everything was not functioning. All of our public transportation was not functioning. And I was just seeing people that I know just standing around, and it was panic. People worried about their friends, their loved ones, et cetera, et cetera. And then when I got home and started to, connect with everybody that I knew, I didn't know anyone that was in the tower, any of the towers, and the other plane that crashed, the Pentagon, any of that stuff. I didn't know anybody that was involved, but I know people who knew people, right? And so there was just pandemonium and so much fear as far as Americans, and there was a lot of negative things. But the most positive thing that came out of the 9/11 attacks and that time, from my perspective, is there was a patriotic feeling. For a moment, I felt that people were unified. For a moment. Now, it didn't last too long, but for anybody that knows how it used to be going through the airport back then, prior to 9/11 and since 9/11, definitely some differences. There was tributes throughout the country today, and really throughout the world. There were tributes in other countries for the Americans that lost lives. And as I said, this is the 19th anniversary. So some of you youngsters may not even remember because, you were too young. But flags were at half staff, and there were many commemoration ceremonies all over the country. In Maryland, there was stuff here, of course. One thing that really was memorable, you're coming at this from a time period where the president, who was George Bush, the younger Bush, he was president at this time, and he's coming off of a controversial, I was going to say win. He's coming off a controversial election, right? Many people did not think that he won fair and square, myself being one of those people. But he threw a pitch, and he threw a pitch, and it really was a great moment. There were a lot of events that just stopped because people did not know whether they were targeting there were other targets, right? So it was a period of time where nothing was happening. Not like now. It wasn't like that, but it was pretty close. It was pretty close from the standpoint that there weren't large scale events for a little bit of time. But there was a memorial today that Joe Biden and Vice President Pence and others attended in Manhattan. And that was a good moment that you can kind of put politics aside. Reefs across America invited all Americans to stand outside and wave a flag for 1 minute at 8:46 a.m., 9:03 a.m., 9:37 a.m., and 10:03 a.m., which were all times of each attack. So President Trump and Joe Biden did a visit to the Flight 93 National Memorial in Pennsylvania. Of course, not at the same time. But it was very nice. And this is just the fact that we're in the midst of a pandemic. And then when you think back to this very, very troubling time, it is very it's humbling. It's very humbling. In Georgia, Governor Brian Kemp posted a video message, and he said that 19 years later, the memory of 9/11 still weighs heavy on us. And Marty, the girls, and I join all Georgians in honoring the innocent civilians and brave first responders who lost their lives on September 11th. So that is coming from the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp. So there was also a memorial, and there's many memorials. Of course, I can't highlight them all, but there was one in DeKalb County, the Public Safety 9/11 Memorial, and they had a nice quote. It says that we stand by the victims, families, and all who have stood in the gap to defend this great country. Honestly, we must never forget this day. And 9/11, September 11th, 2001. Definitely remember that. So if you're just tuning in, it's the Diamond K Show here on radioonfire.com. My name is Diamond K. So on to some other news. In Arkansas, there was a man who got 2 life sentences. And we often talk about the police and the differences between the accountability of civilians, citizens, and the police. So this story is very, very disheartening, right? It really hammers home why people get angry. No one should lose their life, right? Whether it is a police officer, whether it is a civilian, however this works, right? And I understand that, and so don't think that I am condoning anything crazy, because I'm not. But let's talk about this case. So this Arkansas man gets 835 years. So here's what's crazy about this. When you contrast the amount of time that this guy caught for unintentionally killing this off-duty cop versus police officers who clearly intentionally kill, right? Or even, I mean, you look at other individuals who have intentionally killed. It is flabbergasting. So, as I said, this Arkansas man, this man right here, received 2 life sentences totaling 835 years in prison for killing an off-duty police officer, DeMarcus Darnell Parker. He is 27 years old and was convicted of first-degree murder, okay? Illegally shooting a weapon from his car, and 21 other related charges in connection with this April 2018 shooting that killed a 25-year-old Forest City police officer named Oliver Johnson. So investigators say that the shooting was gang-related and that Parker was shooting at a rival gang member outside of Johnson's home when the officer was struck. So, I mean, it's the alleged gang member that he was shooting at outside of the home of this police officer. And investigators say that Parker was an active gang member. So I suppose that's what happened. Why was the sentence so high? What are you trying to achieve by saying 835 years for this killing? Not sure. And when you say 2 life sentences, I mean, how does it equal out? How does it equal out to that? Right? He's not getting out, and there are other sentences. It just seems like overkill, if I can't use a better word. But the following the sentencing, the second judicial district prosecuting attorney said this: Deputy prosecutors Tom Young and Mike Snell worked diligently for several weeks to evaluate hundreds of pieces of evidence to make the best case. And this is the second judicial district prosecuting attorney. So, West Memphis detectives spent many hours putting this case together. The jury listened to both sides and ultimately returned maximum sentences on all counts and recommend they be run consecutively. Sadly, none of this will bring Officer Johnson back to his family, but maybe they will find some comfort that justice was served this week. So, the only other thing I want to say about this is if the off-duty officer had killed Mr. Parker, however it happened, he would not have got 1/100th of this sentence. And so what needs to happen in this country is some equitable justice. If this man was guilty of these crimes, he definitely deserves to be punished. But 835 years is just what they call football numbers. Is beyond football numbers. I don't even know what exactly that means. If they call that justice, what happens in the cases of police killing citizens? What happens in those instances? Is that also justice when those officers get off scot-free or with a smack on the wrist? Interesting. All right, so let's take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. Your man Diamond K back in here, of course, on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, at The Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. And so I definitely want to talk about this story. And, you know, we have gone on and on about what they call in Baltimore the spy plane, right? And it's been a controversial thing, the spy plane. Some people with it, some people against it, et cetera, et cetera. And so a federal appeals court on yesterday heard the American Civil Liberties Union challenge the Baltimore Police Department and the spy plane. So I've sat on different sides of this issue. It's privately funded, and the plane has been flying out of Martin State Airport since earlier this spring, May to be exact. The department is preparing a report on the 6-month trial impacts on its solving and deterring violent crimes. Okay. If you know Baltimore's numbers, as far as our crime numbers, it has not deterred anything. Okay. Now, the city lawyers argue the planes are not capable of tracking people inside buildings, which we knew, or outside for more than a few hours, which we knew, right? This is stuff that we know. Program has other issues placed on it by police. Officers can only request video related to specific incidents, and all requests are logged. That is good. But here's the thing: that the images are blurry. How helpful is this? Police spokesperson said yesterday that the program has provided evidence in 107 cases. Okay. It's not clear how many of those cases led to arrests. Well, let me drop some info here. If the if the information led to some arrests, they would have led with that. They would have said we got 107, things from the spy plane. We got that evidence for 107 cases, and we got this many locked up. That the number is probably low or non-existent, which is why they are not quick to talk about it, because it's not impactful to the degree that we need to have this plane. I mean, we have the cameras. You ever driven through Baltimore and seen the corners, and they have the lights flashing, or like some kind of what looks like I don't want to say it looks like a vehicle, but just some kind of weird contraption, right? I mean, they got lights flashing. We got cameras on certain light poles, traffic lights. We got the door ring. We got all these things, right? Sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's not. I don't know how successful this spy plane has been. And I think that people are really losing their patience for it. At least I am. Of course, you just tuned in to It's Radio on Fire, the Diamond K Show. And I will be talking with independent candidate for mayor of Baltimore, Bob Wallace. We will be speaking momentarily. I see him coming backstage. So we're going to be talking, and I, as I said, am excited to speak with him. A lot of things we need to talk about. When you talk about a city like Baltimore, there is so much that needs to be fixed here. So much that we need to work on here. And it all starts with the mayor. And so let's do this. Let's see if we can get Mr. Wallace on the line. Okay. Mr. Wallace, please, you can unmute your device. Okay, while we do that, we're going to get him to unmute his device, and we're going to be back in a moment with more of the program after this. Okay, and we're back. Of course, Radio on Fire, your man Diamond K in here, and our guest is on the line. So I'm going to bring on Mr. Wallace. And Mr. Wallace is running for mayor of Baltimore. Election is happening November the 3rd. And, we often say that this is the most important election. But I really want people to understand that this is a very, very important election. Mr. Wallace, how you doing? Welcome to the program.
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm good. And so much to talk about. So much to talk about. For people that don't know you, you grew up in Baltimore?
Yes, in Cherry Hill neighborhood of Baltimore.
Okay, so for people that don't know, I guess Cherry Hill, you could say, is outside of downtown.
Yeah, it's in South Baltimore, right near Westport, Mount Winans, Curtis Bay area. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and so growing up, so I grew up in Edmondson Village.
Okay,
and,
all right.
So I can say definitely that we did not grow up with a lot of money, a lot of love,
right?
Not a lot of money. What was your early years like?
Well, I was raised one of 5 boys in Cherry Hill, in the projects of Cherry Hill. My mom was a janitor of the school system, and my father was a laborer, and we struggled in poverty. My older brothers became career military guys. I was the first one who did not go into military and went to college instead. So we experienced the pains and trials of living in poverty and living with lack of resources. But mom and daddy taught us a couple of things. They taught us the power of hard work, education, and faith in God. And so my brothers, all 5 of us, have been successful in their own right. My 3 older brothers, career military careers, and me and my younger brother went to college and studied to become engineers.
Okay. Did you ever think growing up that you would become involved in politics?
You know what? When I was a kid, I was more interested in technology and starting businesses and becoming an entrepreneur. I really didn't have any strong desire to be in politics. And even now, I'm running now, but I'm running because I look at our city and look at the direction that it's going in, look at the leadership that we've had and have. And I say, you know what, we can do better than this. We have to do better than this. And so I just got fed up. I mean, I started my business about 30 years ago in Columbia, Maryland. So we're in the IT. We're in cyber, biometrics, software engineering type work. We have an energy company that does large scale solar energy projects, battery engineering, microgrid engineering type work. And we have a media company where I've written 8 books, and we consult and mentor entrepreneurs around the world. So I've been pretty much in the business world, but I moved my company from Howard County to downtown Baltimore 15 years ago. So I've had a front row seat to look at the city's direction that it's gone in terms of crime, in terms of the size of the city getting smaller, in terms of the education system not educating our children like we needed to. And I just said, you know what, we're going in the wrong direction, and we need to do something different. And that enough is enough. We need to get new leadership for Baltimore City. So that's why I'm running as mayor.
It's interesting. What called you to downtown Baltimore? Why did you move the business?
Well, see, I was, again, raised in Cherry Hill, And I went to Cherry Hill Elementary, Middle School, and I went to Poly High School, and from Poly I went to study engineering. So and then I went the corporate route. I worked at IBM, Procter & Gamble, DuPont, Westinghouse, before deciding to come back to Baltimore in 1984. So after graduate school, I came back to Baltimore to take care of my parents, and decided to come back home. So I'm what's called a boomerang kid, right? So I went away to school and got my career going, but decided to come back to Baltimore. So I came back, and I'm here to stay. And I built my businesses here, and my family's here. My wife is from East Baltimore, over on Biddle Street, but although we met at UPenn in engineering school, she's from Baltimore as well. So we have deep roots here in the city. Love the city, love the people, and want to see it get to a better place.
Absolutely. So I guess your background being so heavily in business, some people may wonder, as do I, how does that prepare you to be the mayor of this city?
That's a great question. I think a couple of things. One, what may not be clear to people is that my company has really supported the city of Baltimore government for over the last 27 years. So if you go back to Mayor Smoke, my company and me in particular have been a consultant in technology areas to every mayor of this city since Mayor Smoke up to Jack Young. So we know the operation of the city. We know the environment of the city. We know the people of the city. So even though I've not been in politics, that's been the case. But I would also argue, sir, that government really is a business, because you're talking about taking resources that are scarce, right, and maybe limited, and using them in a way that they can produce an outcome or benefit to the customer. Who's the customer? The citizens of Baltimore City. So my premise is that government needs to be run like a business in terms of getting efficiencies and providing the services that people need. And because it has not been run that way over the last 10, 20, 30 years, you're seeing the inefficiencies and the problems that we see in our city today. So I would argue that a business approach is valuable.
Yeah, and that's a different approach than has definitely been used thus far, at least in my lifetime.
That's
and
true.
So,
yes, sir.
With that type of an outlook, which is a different outlook, with that type of an outlook, I guess if you are not providing what the customers need, then they would move on. Yes, as
sir.
far as leadership. So taking that type of an approach it's a humble approach, and it is definitely different than the politicians. Do you consider yourself to be a politician?
No, sir, I do not. I consider myself to be a citizen who happens to have a background in technology and in business. I am a tech entrepreneur, and that's been my background and my experience. But what I think that I excel in, that I think is important now for Baltimore to get to the next level, is to have an executive that knows how to bring people together, how to bring resources together, how to put strategies and plans together, and then to execute on those plans and strategies. If you look at our city today, if you look at all the challenges that we face in our city with the violence and the crime and the poverty and the trash in the streets and rats everywhere, and just the dysfunction between the community and the police department, I would argue that an executive with experience at executing on strategy is the kind of executive that we need today, not career politicians. I think it's career politicians that have gotten us to this point in our city's journey at this time, and that's why I think enough is enough. We need to. I think anyone who looks at the city and says, "Boy, we're going the wrong direction here," and we've been going the wrong direction for a long time, ever since Brandon Scott got on the city council 10 years ago, we've been going in the wrong direction. And I think that most people are recognizing that and saying we need to try something different, go in a different direction, and maybe give a non-politician a chance to lead our city.
All right. So, as far as your political affiliation, um, you have been an independent for how long?
So I've been an independent about a year and a half, 2 years. I've been a Democrat. So when I got out of college, so I come from a family, sir, of Democrats. I mean, multi-generational, back to FDR, President FDR, right?
Hmm.
So when I got out of college, I was a Democrat. And then later, as I got more experience and moved through life, I became a Republican. I became a Republican because I felt that what's needed in the African American community and minority community is economic power, economic empowerment, wealth creation, entrepreneurship, and I felt that the Republican parties, at least the old Republican Party, had a platform that supported the formation of businesses and entrepreneurship in communities. Now you fast forward now to the party of Donald Trump. The Republican Party has now become the party of Donald Trump. And I cannot accept that. I cannot be comfortable in that environment. I'm totally against that. And that's why I became an independent. And it's also why I have endorsed the Biden-Harris ticket for president, because I think that is the best path for our country to get back on track. So that's been my political journey, and I'll tell you, running as an independent for me is a perfect fit for me because I'm an independent thinker. Everything I've ever done in my life, from leaving the projects to becoming an engineer to starting a business to writing books to raising a family, it's always been I've been an independent thinker, a pioneer in many ways. That fits me well where I am in my life.
Okay. Okay. I hear you on that. Just tuning in. It's Diamond K Radio on Fire. I am talking with Bob Wallace, who is an independent candidate for mayor of Baltimore. So you spoke about something that has definitely troubled me for years, and that is the relationship between the police department and the citizens of
Yes, sir.
Baltimore.
Yes, sir.
How can you what do you think is necessary? What needs to happen for this relationship to be improved? Because when I was a child in school, the relationship, so I was a kid in the 80s, the relationship between the police and the citizens was very different than what it is now.
Absolutely.
Police officers came to our school. You had what they call the officer friendly. There
That's
was
right. That's
there was
right.
a good relationship. I'm not saying it can get back to that, but how can we improve the relationship between the police department and the citizens?
So I come from an era that was a little bit before your era, and I had a very similar experience as well. And we had what was called the Police Athletic League in Cherry Hill, where the police were our coaches, and where they would walk the beat and they walked the community. And as you said, sir, they knew the people, they knew families, and that was a different era than it is today. So part of the problem is again because of the budget and the economics. They've had to find ways to cut costs, and
Right.
unfortunately, they've cut costs through programs like what you went through and what I went through as a PAL, the Police Athletic League. They cut those out, and so
Right.
consequently, the relationship between the community and the police has also diminished, and so therefore, you have a situation now where there's no trust in the community. So let's be clear. So historically, and I always remind people of this. Historically, police as an institution was never designed to protect and serve Black folks. The police as an institution was designed to control Black folks. So that historical relationship between the police as an institution and the African American community has always been one that has been very, very adversarial. So what we have to do as mayor, what I have to do as mayor, is to begin to find ways to rebuild that relationship between the police and the community in general, and the African American community in particular. Because we cannot be great as a city, we cannot be safe if the police and the community do not cooperate and do not collaborate. So part of my job as mayor is to put systems in place to help rebuild that trust between the two entities.
I'm glad to hear you say that because in order for us to really correct these issues, we have to first acknowledge what they are.
Yes,
And,
sir.
and what you said about the formation of the police department is absolutely true. And I'm very glad to hear you say that. I mean, when people may hear that and think that because the police departments were created in to do things that we really don't want them to do now, and it was created with a different mindset. It can change. If you look at this country was created not with us with our best interests or us even looked at as equal.
That's
And
correct.
we are steadily working to change that. And we have made a lot of strides. So it can
That's
happen.
correct.
The police department
It
can
can.
change.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Definitely. It
That's
definitely can.
that's why
So
I
what?
support the whole idea when they talk about defunding the police. I think that's a bad term, right? I'm
It
not
is.
sure that's what
It's
they
very bad.
mean.
It's a very
You know
bad
what I
time.
mean? But what I am for, sir, what I am for is rethinking and reimagining how we provide public safety. I mean, if I look at, for example, sir, next year we're going to spend as a city about $550 million. That's $500 million we're going to spend on public safety. My question as mayor is going to be, is that the best use of that capital to get the public safety results that we desire? It probably is not. There probably are better ways that we could spend that money to get better outcomes as it pertains to public safety. So I am very much for that as an executive would do in any situation. But as far as defunding the police or getting rid of the police as an inmate, to me that makes no sense. But I
Right.
will tell you, when I've gone through the communities, there are some communities like in East Baltimore who say, no, we want to get rid of the police, and we want to. And I would ask, well, how are we going to take care of the safety of our community, or we would do it ourselves? So they want to self police in some cases. They're a very small group, but I'm just
Absolutely.
saying,
And that won't
there's
work.
some thinking out there, and that won't work. That won't work.
Yeah.
So
But I think that comes from a mindset that some of the citizens are feeling the results of the police officers literally with their feet on their necks,
yes, sir.
figuratively. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
sir.
And
I
they
do.
really want some, pull back from the police a
Yes.
little bit.
Yes.
And I think that that's where that comes from. But those same citizens would need the police
Absolutely.
to maintain safety.
Absolutely. Yes,
It
sir.
depends on who
Yes,
you
sir.
ask. So many things that I want to get to. But your position as it relates to getting our children ready for their academic success.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, I have a seven tenets on my platform, but the top three is crime, education, and job creation. So you mentioned education. So imagine a system, sir, where all of our babies come into kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, and that they go through K through 12 system, and they don't leak out. And what I mean by leaking is when kids get in the education system, and for whatever reason they leave the education process, and they come and they go to the streets, right? I call that leakage. But let's assume we have a system where there's no leakage. Our kids come in the kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, they go through the system, they get educated 12th grade, and they either go to professions as carpenters, electricians, janitors, plumbers, bricklayers, masonry people, solar technicians,
With the trade,
or they
yeah.
go or a trade, or they go to
Hmm.
college, right? So
Hmm.
my plan is called ER18. ER18 says that every child in our system should be employment ready by the time they turn 18 years of age. So what does that mean? It means that in the fifth grade, by the fifth grade, we've identified a track that these child, based upon their gifts, their interests, and their skills, and their desires, that they can be on the track. So the track could be a carpentry track, it could be a plumbing track, electrical track, it could be a biotech track, it could be even a track on entrepreneurship, right? And we begin developing these kids along those tracks. So by the time they get to 12th grade and they graduate, they are ready for jobs, ER 18, employment ready by 18. They're ready for jobs or a career into college, right? And so at the same time, we got to build an economy that will receive them when they
Yes.
get when they're skilled in those areas. And that's why my platform is heavy on economic development, because my goal is to create 100,000 jobs in my first term as mayor. Part B of that plan is to attract $1 billion of capital to Baltimore City to invest in our city, to build our economy and our infrastructure. One of the biggest reasons why we have crime and violence and hopelessness and poverty is that our people have been left out in the prosperity of the city. If you look at, I remember Freddie Gray, and the whole Freddie Gray situation. Freddie Gray, I give you a metric. Freddie Gray was born in 1990. He died in 2015. From the time he was born to the time he died, the city of Baltimore lost over 111,000 jobs. And guess what? Guess where those jobs came from primarily? They came from the African American community in East Baltimore, West Baltimore, and South Baltimore. That's what I'm saying. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question about that. So when you say that the city lost jobs,
Yes.
break that down even further. Does that mean that businesses left? Does that mean that the jobs were taken over by computers? What happened to those jobs?
That's a great question, sir. So it's all the above. So it is either the companies left the city, or the companies, because of whatever reason, had to reduce their workforce, right? Or the economy in Baltimore City just transformed, right? So I'm not sure how old you are, but when I was coming up, my father worked in the manufacturing, like Bethlehem Steel and the big manufacturing parts of it. And we had a manufacturing economy back then. Well, those manufacturing businesses died. They went away. When they went away, our economy was transformed. And when it was transformed from a manufacturing economy to a knowledge and information-based economy, then people who had jobs in that sector, those jobs went away and never came back. And so we've had a restructuring, if you will, of our economy. And when that happens, there are winners and losers. And unfortunately, the losers in many cases have been African Americans who came in, who had low educational levels, attainment levels. And thus, when the economy changed, they were some of the victims. So what I'm suggesting is, as mayor, we've got to rebuild our economy in such a way that everyone is lifted up in our city and everyone can benefit. And that takes, in my view, sir, that takes a business-minded mayor to make that happen.
So I can say this, that coming into this conversation, I was very skeptical. I didn't understand what perspective you were going to come from. What you're saying does make sense. And it definitely involves some restructuring of things
Yes,
to be current with the environment that we're in. And what has happened my lifetime is we've just gone along on that same path, but things have not really been, modernized to reflect the times that we're in.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so,
sir.
So I see the course that you're on, and that is interesting. What kind of response have you been getting from citizens of Baltimore that you've been talking to during your campaigning efforts?
So I've been very encouraged, sir. I mean, I think most people recognize that we're going in the wrong direction, that that the current leadership has failed us, and that we can do better. So what we decided to do, sir, was to launch what we call Walk with Wallace campaign, where I am physically walking through neighborhoods of all 32 jurisdictions in our city, all zip codes, to meet with the people in those neighborhoods. And I'm learning a couple of things. Number one is people are telling me that I'm the only person who's running that has been in their neighborhoods and walking through their neighborhoods. That's the first thing. The second thing they tell me is that we like your approach in terms of bringing a business-minded executive to run our city versus a career politician. And the third thing, which is very encouraging for me, sir, because I've never run for office before. They say, when I say I'm Bob Wallace, they say, I know who you are, because they've done their research and they've seen our ads and our commercials, and they know something about me which is very, very encouraging. And so we're very motivated by this. And we're building a coalition, sir, a coalition. We're going to win this race. And the reason we're going to win it is that we're building a coalition of people on our team. So we're attracting Democrats, we're attracting Republicans, we're attracting independents, unaffiliates, blue collar workers. We're building this coalition of people in Baltimore who share one mission, and that is we can do better as a city. Our leadership has failed us in the past, and that we can do better, and that enough is enough. And that's the coalition that we're building to win this race.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier Brandon Scott.
Yes,
and
sir.
Obviously he is one of the people vying for the position. So do you lump him in with the current stat quo? You lump him in with that crowd?
I don't see. Yes, sir. I don't see how you can't do that. I don't understand. Brandon, okay, let's look at the past history here. Brandon has been in City Hall for the last 10 years. He came in as an assistant to Stephanie Rawlings Blake. Then he ran for council and he won. And he's been city council since that time. He's been president for about a year or so. He's had a front row seat to all of the issues that our city has faced. So to say that he's a fresh look forward, a fresh path forward, to me that makes no sense. It doesn't. That dog don't hunt. And so this idea that he's a fresh look, fresh ideas. He's been chairman, for example, he's been chairman of the Public Safety Commission on City Council for at least a year and a half. And he's been on that commission for at least 4 or 5 years. And I would ask you, what has happened with crime and violence in our city over those last 5 to 10 years? It's gone through the roof. Since Brandon has been in City Council, we've lost over 2,700 lives in Baltimore City. So he cannot say that he's a fresh face or fresh look forward. He is not. And so what I'm saying is we need to get a real fresh look and a real fresh face. So my plan is, sir, to come to City Hall and disrupt it. I'm not interested in nibbling around the edges to change things. I'm talking about disrupting this enterprise that has not served the people well over these years. And I think it's an outsider to do that, not an insider like Brandon is.
As it relates to, obviously we're in the midst of a pandemic here.
Yes, sir.
Campaigning has not been as traditional as in the past, and a lot of things. How do you feel that Baltimore Mayor Young has handled this pandemic, and as far as Governor Hogan, how do you think that they both have handled the pandemic?
Well, my hat goes off to Mayor Young and to the governor. I mean, look, no one on the planet anticipated this pandemic in this way. I mean, This is like out of left field. And so, I mean, it's been really tough for the world, for that matter. And so it's a tough hand that they've been dealt. I do feel that the mayor could have been a little more innovative in how to respond to this. And I think that maybe the governor to some degree too, but I think the governor did a fairly good job. I think Jack did a good job given the hand that he was given. But I think there's the innovation. It could have been more innovative ways to deal with this, such as, for example, using public-private partnerships to work with the city to provide some services when we are in this tough place. Like, for example, picking up trash, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure if you live in the city, sir, but if you've gone to the city as I'm going through the trash, I have never seen Baltimore this filthy in my life. And it's unacceptable. And I think that we can do a better job of that if we look at innovative ways to meet the services of the people of the city. But there's no question, sir, that we're going to be in a crisis situation for a long, long time. And that's why I tell people, what kind of mayor do you want to lead you in a period of crisis after crisis after crisis? COVID-19 is nowhere near resolution. But guess what? Next year, we're going to have a $103 million deficit in our city budget. Where's that money going to come from, right? How do we meet the services of our people when our tax revenues are being diminished because of the pandemic? So these are the kinds of challenges that the next mayor will face in this city.
Definitely.
And do you want somebody with no experience managing, finances and managing money and managing technology and managing people, or do you want somebody who has a proven record of being able to be an executive in those environments to make things happen? That's the question people have to ask themselves.
Yeah. I mean, you're making a good case. Absolutely. From where I sit, a lot of people are not thinking about the future, the deficit, and
Yes,
how this crisis is not over by a
Now
long
over.
shot.
Amen.
And we're
Amen.
definitely going to be feeling the effects of this for some time. And we
Yes, sir.
already had a transparency issue. We already
Yeah.
had an accountability issue.
Yes, sir.
And so it sounds like what you're saying is that your background will help get some of the accountability. Is that what you're saying?
So I think, sir, that as being a non-politician, so one of the things that I'm going to do as mayor is to be clear on what the objectives are of every agency that's under my control, and what measurements are we going to use to measure performance. Then I'm going to put all that data, the objectives and the key results that we're going to measure to attain to determine progress. We're going to put on a dashboard. So that every citizen in Baltimore City, 24/7, will be able to see how is the administration of Bob Wallace, how are they tracking at meeting their objectives. So when I say about accountability, that is, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to put a tool in place for you to measure how I'm doing, and then you can hold me accountable to meeting those objectives. That's what leaders do. That's what business leaders do. And that's the kind of mayor that I hope to be, where I'm not going to hide behind anything or hide behind a situation. I am the mayor of our city. The buck stops here. Hold me accountable, because that's what leaders do. They allow themselves to be held accountable.
Yeah, that is absolutely what we need. How can people support your campaign?
Great question, sir. Well, first thing they can do, they can go to, thank you, they can go to wallaceformayor.com, and they can donate to help us with our finances. They can volunteer. They can provide me ideas on solutions to our problems. I mean, one of the things I'm learning from our walk through the communities is that the people that I'm meeting, and they have so many great ideas on how to solve the problems of Baltimore City. So I'm getting this, I'm being fed by the people of the city, and I'm loving it. So those are the things that they can do. And then they can tell their neighbors about Bob Wallace. I mean, look, Brandon Scott's been around 10 years. People know the name Brandon Scott. They may not know the name Bob Wallace as well as they do Brandon Scott, but that's changing also. All I ask them to do, sir, is to look at my background, look at what I have done, look at my experience, and then compare and contrast that to Brandon Scott, and then determine what kind of leader do you want leading you into the future, a future that is defined by crisis after crisis, a future defined by lack of resources or diminishing resources, a future defined by political infighting and disruption and dysfunction. Right? And I would think that most people would say that my background is a better fit for what the city needs at this point in time.
Okay. That are you open to debate with Mr. Scott and Shannon Wright?
By all means. So we've had 1, 2, 3 debates already. The first debate, Mr. Scott chose not to participate, and that was on Channel 45, and that was myself and Shannon Wright. We had another debate, it was a debate where I understand that Brandon did not want to have a debate. So he came on for an hour, then I came on for an hour, and then Miss Wright came on for an hour. That's not really a debate. That's
like a town hall.
yeah. I mean, so but we're gonna try to incentivize Mr. Scott to debate with me.
Why do you think
people deserve it?
Why do you think that is that he doesn't want to do that?
I think that Mr. Scott feels that because he's following the progression that we've used in the city for 40, 50 years, where they start on city council, then they become city council president, then they become the mayor. And in his view, it's a coronation, right? So he now was city council president, and then he's going to be automatically be coronated as the mayor. But I'm saying to him, hold on, not so fast, because you got to come through me first. You got to come through me, and you owe it to the people of the city to debate me on the issues that impacted the city, the people of Baltimore City, and then let them decide. Let them decide what kind of leader they want to lead them into the future. But I think, sir, they think they haven't won. Because the Democrat system has been, city council president, and then mayor, right? That's how it's been for so long. But I would ask you, what have we gotten from this? How has the city benefited from this? Not very well. So I think that people are challenging that progression, and they're saying maybe it's time for us to take a look at a different way and a different kind of leader in our city.
Yeah. That is good. I think that we've had some of the wrong people in positions. I mean, when you look at a day like today, where a former aide of Catherine Pugh is being sentenced, and you have just the irony that we're going to elect the next mayor now, and our last elected mayor is in jail.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. When you say that out loud, it sounds like a movie. You know what I mean? It sounds like it's not real.
It's not real. I know.
Yeah. So I have been struggling with whether it's that we've had the wrong people in position. But talking with you, I definitely agree that structurally, some things in Baltimore did not advance like they should have.
That's correct. That's correct.
With regards, because to me, crime comes down to economics.
It does. Amen.
And when people don't have, then they feel like they are forced to take.
That's exactly right. Yes, sir.
And we have to improve that. And somebody with your success, your record of success, it is definitely a different thing altogether.
Well, sir, I look at my journey, and maybe yours is very similar, right? So we started in poverty in Cherry Hill in the projects, right? But as I mentioned, by God's grace and mom and daddy giving us the proper guidance, education, and hard work, they showed us a pathway out of poverty, right, into a better place. What I would like to do, the same path that God blessed me with, is the same path that any young woman or young man in the same predicament that I was in Cherry Hill can take that same path, sir, and get out of poverty. So what I hope to do as mayor is to institutionalize that path so that African Americans and any other person in our community who struggles in poverty has a path and can believe that if they can do certain things, they can have a better life. Because most people, all of us are the same. We want a better life. We want to take care of our babies and our children. We want to, use our God-given gifts. We want to prosper. We want to be happy and healthy. We all want the same thing. So what I want to do as mayor is to, by God's grace, figure out how we can institutionalize that path such that more of our people can take it and get out of poverty and benefit from the wealth and benefit from the prosperity of our city. That's what I want to see. And I have 5 kids, sir. I've raised my kids. They're all grown, successful. I have 8 grandkids. They are doing very, very well. I've built my business. I've got people running the businesses now. This job as mayor, this is my full-time focus right now. And I'm not interested in any job after this. I think Mr. Scott may be interested in the next job, in political job. That's not me. I'm in this job to turn Baltimore around and make our city what it used to be, right? And I think we can do that with the right leadership.
With the right leadership, you're absolutely right about that. And I guess before we go, a couple of other things.
Yes, sir.
You are different from the standpoint that I haven't seen an independent candidate get signatures and get. How did you make this happen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, you are correct. I'm the first independent candidate for mayor in Baltimore's history to be on the ballot. And that, as you said, as you implied, that required that we had to get thousands of signatures. And I would tell you, we turned in over four times the minimum requirement of signatures to be on the ballot. That's how excited people are about change. And everyone that signed our ballot, they said, finally, we have somebody who's not a politician, who is business minded, who can look at our city and help us to get to a better place. Finally, we have someone like that, and we're going to support you, Mr. Wallace. And so those people are the foundation of my support that we started with. But I tell you, the energy and excitement has been incredible. It's been incredible. And people tell me, this is a 10-1 Democratic city. You don't have a chance. I just smile, sir. I just smile and say, yeah, okay. Wait till November 4th. Because there is an energy going through our community that is still not visible yet on the surface, but it's running through the roots of this city. And I think on November 4th, there'll be a lot of surprised people in Baltimore City about who the next mayor is.
Well, I have to say that you definitely have shaken some things up. After, I guess, in June, when we found out that Brandon Scott was going to have the Democratic nod,
Yes,
most
sir.
people said, "Okay, this is over with.
I know.
This is done with," and I was one of those people. And then I started seeing your campaigning begin. Well, I mean,
Yes,
maybe
sir.
not begin, because I'm sure you did some things that behind
That's
the scenes,
right.
but I started seeing evidence of it, and I'm like, okay, well, like, what's good? Doesn't he know that it's already over?
I know. Wait,
And,
well, some people say that's so true. I mean, some people think if I'm a Democrat or Republican that I cannot vote for an independent. Well, that's not true. Not in the general election. Now, in primary, that's true. But in
right.
November, you can be a Democrat and vote for me. You can be Republican and vote for an independent. It doesn't matter. You can vote for whomever you desire on November 3rd. And that's the good part about this process.
Right. That is. I definitely think that people are paying attention to you.
They are. I agree.
And yeah, people are definitely paying attention to you, and you definitely have a shot. This is not a done thing, as many people thought that it was,
Right.
and I think that is good. That it's not done.
I agree.
Yeah. So how are you encouraging people to vote in person, early? Like how are you encouraging them to vote?
So I think that voting is a personal process, right? I mean, there's some people, like especially older people, who are still uncomfortable navigating in a COVID-19 environment. And so
Yeah.
for those people, mail-in voting is probably going to be best for them. Anyone who may, have ailments that where they cannot get out of the home. I think everyone should have the right to vote, and we should have multiple vehicles to allow them to do that. So I think it's a hybrid approach, sir, that I think is necessary. And I'm glad that we have that. If you want to go in person, personally, I'll vote in person because I'm
Yeah.
very comfortable navigating in the COVID-19 environment. And I just like the excitement of being in a voting booth and being in a voting environment on election day. That's me. So I think we have multiple options for multiple people, and that's a good thing.
So you wear masks out in public?
Yes, sir. So we're masked. I mean, even when we're canvassing now. So what's interesting is that even with COVID-19, we are still meeting with people in person. Now we are being safe. So we're wearing masks. We're social distancing. We don't shake hands. So we're doing all the right things. But people are coming out because they want to see me. They want to look at my eyes and say, okay, sir, we're going to give you our vote, but we're counting on you to help lead us to a better place. And so that's changing now, and that's coming out now. I mean, one of the things that I've heard about as I've traveled, I've been blessed, sir. I've been able to travel the world and meet with presidents and kings and queens of countries. And one of the things that I've heard about the leadership of Baltimore up to now is, I will say, people say, well, we want to invest in Baltimore, in America in general, but Baltimore in particular. But the reason we don't invest in Baltimore City, or we haven't so far, these are their words. is that the leadership has low capacity. Now let that sink in for a second. That our leadership, these are their words, that the leadership in Baltimore City, the political leadership, has low capacity. Can you imagine, sir, the tens of millions, or maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars that has bypassed Baltimore City because we've had leaders who were perceived to have low capacity? That has to change. That has to change. And we're better than that as a city. We have great DNA in our city. We got great neighborhoods. We got great people who are smart, who can compete globally. That's not who Baltimore is. And it breaks my heart when I hear that. Okay, but we got to change it. We got to change that. And I hope that the people of Baltimore will give me a chance to show that I can help indeed change that, help change that.
Absolutely. Well said. Again, people can support the campaign, wallaceformayor.com. And
Yes,
I've been talking to Mr. Bob Wallace, and time flies. I didn't even realize that much time has gone past, but yeah, time has flies. I really appreciate your time and you speaking with me. Anything you want to say before we go?
Can I ask you one question?
Absolutely.
I know it's your show, but you said something earlier I wanted to explore. You said before you met me, before I came on board on your show, you said you didn't know what to expect. Could you explain what did you think? What did you think about me or about this interaction?
Well,
before?
If I could be transparent, I knew that you had been a Republican and a Democrat.
Yes, sir.
I knew that more recently you had been a Republican.
Yes,
and coming from a business background, I'm thinking Trump. Okay, so I'm thinking Trump. Okay, former Democrat,
yes,
former
sir.
Republican,
Yeah, right.
background. Okay, what am I getting ready to walk into here? Yeah, so that's what that's what I was thinking.
I get it.
But I
wasn't
surprised.
Well, I tell people, sir, you know what? Because they do say the Trump thing. And I say, yeah, Trump is a businessman, but he's not indicative of all business people. It's kind of like, sir, you and I are black men. And if I mess up, that doesn't mean that you're going to mess up just because you're a black man, right? So it's the same way in business. I mean, he's a businessman, but he's unfit for the job. Whether he's a businessman or not, he's unfit for the job. And that's why I've endorsed the Biden-Harris team, because we need a president in the White House that we can work, we being Baltimoreans, that we can work with and that can help our city and help us do the things that we want to do. And I don't think Mr. Trump is the right leader in the White House to help us as a city. So that's why I support the Biden-Harris ticket.
I agree. He has been very vocal about his thoughts on the city of Baltimore himself and through his surrogates and all of that.
Right.
This is a great city. Now, that doesn't mean we don't need work. That doesn't mean we don't need maintenance.
That's right. That's right. We do.
but we need all those things. I'm also glad to hear you speak about the presentation of the city, the trash, and things like that. Whenever I've talked to people in government about what I call a simple issue, when I was growing up, the trash was picked up. The trash trucks came through on Wednesday and Saturday. Sir. It was clockwork. Whenever I would hear the trucks going up the alley, I was running to grab all of the trash to put it out back. And and so then they started cutting down the trash days to one. And people always talk about it being an economic thing. And you being a business person, I hope that you could find a way to find a budget to make something work, because that thing, people think that it's a simple thing and small thing, but it's very important. When we have trash on the ground, it makes people throw trash down. The ones that are
Yes, sir.
inclined to do that,
Amen.
there's trash already on the ground, so they throw
That's
more
right.
trash on the ground.
Amen.
But
Amen.
if we get the city looking better, just
That's right.
better, we can instill that pride again.
And see, sir, part of my and you've hit on something that's very, very powerful. And that's what I would do. My plan as mayor. There are simple things that I can do as mayor in the first 100 days that will help to change the mindset of the people of the city. I call them layups, right? Layups. There's like picking up the trash, right? Cleaning up our streets, making sure that the lights work, making sure that we have, that the rents are under control. I mean, these little things like that we can do, I think that can make the quality of life better in the city right away. And those are things I will pay attention to in my first 100 days as mayor.
Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and
Same here, sir.
I hope this is not the last time that we get to speak.
I'm sure it won't be.
Definitely. People can go to wallaceformayor.com and find out more about you, donate, volunteer, and read up on your platform and anything
Yes,
like
sir.
that.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate it, and I know I kept you
so much.
longer than
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thanks again, and much
take
luck
care.
to you.
Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir.
You as well.
Bye.
All right, we've been talking to Bob Wallace. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back after this. Welcome back. Your man Diamond K in here, radioonfire.com, the diamondkshow.com. So we had an interview with Mr. Bob Wallace, who is running for mayor in Baltimore City, independent candidate. I enjoyed the discussion and the conversation. And so the election is important. November 3rd is a critical time of decision for everyone, not just in Baltimore, not just in Maryland, across this great country. And so we've been talking about voting and the such, and we're going to continue to talk about it much more. We touched on something when I was talking with Mr. Wallace, and that is the former top aide to the, former mayor, I guess we got to say that, former top aide to the former mayor, Catherine Pugh, Gary Brown Jr., sentenced in prison today. And Brown, who is 38 years old, was sentenced for conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And when you think about some of the people who we've had in City Hall, as I said earlier, and you may well know, our former mayor is in jail. The last person that was elected, because Jack Young was not elected as mayor, he kind of slid into the slot because of what was going on with Catherine Pugh. So a lot of crazy things going on. So Mr. Brown, as I said, 38 years old, sentenced for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 2 counts of conspiracy to defraud the United States, and for filing false tax returns. The judge ordered Brown to pay restitution, $14K, and his prison term will be followed by 3 years of supervised probation. Are we talking about a crime family, or are we talking about politicians? I don't know, because some of the stuff that we're reading off is just like a crime family, right? And a not successful crime family. But that is neither here nor there. And so we also talked about the pandemic. The pandemic is affecting this country. And when it is over, quote unquote over, we still are going to have to deal with the repercussions of the pandemic. And That is something that leaders, be it local government, national, federal, they're going to have to reconcile with that. One agency that I know is going to have major trouble is the MTA. So here in Baltimore, in Maryland, MTA is struggling. So you may say, why are they struggling? They got a lot of money. Okay. As bad as they treat the riders. Yeah, I said as bad as they treat the riders, right? As bad as they treat the riders, they need the riders. And people have not been riding the metro like that. The bus, the light rail, the subway, right? They haven't been riding like that. They're in need of money. If you know, they've been reducing services because the routes are empty, because people are not getting, they're concerned. It was already not the cleanest, right? Subway wasn't that clean. The bus was definitely not that clean, and the light rail was not that clean already. And then we're going into this pandemic. People are frightened to ride, and it's a closed-in space, a lot of things. So they needed money. They need money. And the MTA has received $49.3 million in federal money from the Federal Transit Administration. So they announced this today, this grant to the MTA, the Maryland Transit Administration, for people that don't know, right? The place where you get the bus passes from, right? So this grant is part of the funding under the federal coronavirus relief bill that was signed in the spring. It's in addition to the $392 million in CARES Act funding that the agency got in July. What are they doing and need with all this money? You may say the subway is dirty, the bus is dirty, subway is dark. You're like, what are they doing for all this money? All right, you may say that, and I think that you're definitely inclined and justified in this question. So the agency recently announced some service cuts, and we talked about that. Local bus, commuter bus, MARC train lines, all set to take effect next year. So what does that mean? That means it's going to be, they're getting more money, or at least grant money, but they're actually going to have less routes. Make that make sense. And of course, they're going to keep raising the rates too. But the feds also issued a safety advisory, which prompts the transit agencies to develop and implement policies on face coverings, disinfections, and cleaning, physical separation, social distancing, and hand hygiene. So I would love to find out that they're going to change some of the seating, because the bus is close. All right. If you sit in the back of the bus, close. Right. So we're going to see how that goes and how that runs. We're going to keep people posted on that. So MTA receiving another lump sum of money, big money, 49.3 million in federal money. Now, at the end of the day, this is going to come back, right? I'm telling you that they're going to be raising rates soon. More money for less trips. That's what's going to happen in the very near future. You just tuning in to Diamond K Show here on Radio on Fire, the Diamond K Show.com. Now, of course, on social media at the Diamond K Show, at Radio on Fire. So Dak Prescott is a quarterback. He is he's one of the top guys. He's one of the top guys in the league as far as that position. He's not the top. Well, he's one of the tops, and he's somebody that was looked at and is looked at with great promise. And so with the start of the football season last night, I definitely think that it's timely to talk about this. Dak Prescott has responded to Skip Bayless dismissing his battle with depression. And more specifically, Skip has been dissing Dak for coming public and talking about his battle with depression. Skip Bayless is a Cowboys fan, and he's an older guy, so he's kind of set in his ways, right? So he stirred up some controversy by making light of the quarterback, Dak Prescott, and his depression. Okay. So let's understand this, that Dak's brother died from suicide. And if you have had a sibling pass away, that's already a tough thing to deal with. And so the suicide part, making it, understandably difficult. But Skip reacted to Dak speaking about his brother Jace passing, who he said had a lot of burdens on him. And he never stopped grieving the death of their mother. Their mother passed in 2013. So check this out. Bayless said that he had sympathy for those who suffer with depression, but he added that he has no sympathy for Dak. Right? How do you quantify that? How does that make sense? Like, how do you justify that? And so that is how do we get there? How do we get to that point? Somebody saying this, and so the reason why he said that, so he says that he does not have sympathy for him going public with, I got depressed. I suffered depression early in COVID to the point that I could not even go work out, he said. So Skip is saying that he is the quarterback of America's team. Okay. And the sport that you play is dog eat dog. It's no compassion, no quarter given on the football field. If you reveal publicly any little weakness, it can affect your team's ability to believe in you in the toughest spots. And it can definitely encourage others on the other side to come after you, he said. So I do not agree with this, okay? And I think that it is crazy that Skip Bayless would say this, okay? Everybody loves their family, and you have loved ones and you got family members, et cetera, et cetera. And so Dak Prescott being depressed about the loss of his brother, or for that point, the loss of his mom, is not a weakness. If he gets on the field, he can do his thing. Sometimes, if you look at the one of the biggest sports upsets that I have ever heard about, and that was when Mike Tyson lost to Buster Douglas, right? Youngsters, you need to look that up, right? And Buster Douglas had just lost a family member, and that motivated him to defeat Mike Tyson, who did not take the fight serious and was partying. That also played a fact in it. But the death, the loss, the sadness can motivate someone. And it can motivate, and I'm sure that it will motivate, Dak Prescott. And so Skip Bayless talking crazy is just him. And Fox Sports released a statement saying that they do not agree with Skip Bayless' comments on Dak Prescott and on mental health. They also said, this is Fox Sports said that at Fox Sports, we are proud of Dak Prescott for publicly revealing his struggle with depression and mental health. No matter the cause of the struggle, Fox Sports believes Dak showed tremendous courage, which is evident in both his leadership on the Dallas Cowboys and in his character off the field. We do not agree with Skip Bayless' opinion on Undisputed this morning. We have addressed the significance of this matter with Skip and how his insensitive comments were received by people internally at Fox Sports and our audience. So definitely kudos to Fox Sports for that. I am pleased to hear that they do support Dak. And I think that if you are suffering from something, talking about it, coming forward with it is the best thing. There are a lot of people that have this or these type of challenges. Everybody gets down sometimes. And it is good to talk about it because you don't want to feel like you're the only person going through something. And it is good. Community is super important. And it's definitely a courageous thing. And shout out to Dak. Salute Dak. And Skip needs to get yourself together, Skip. And you definitely owe a multitude of apologies. Get your mind right. Of course, the Diamond K Show, RadioOnFire.com, TheDiamondKShow.com, and jam-packed lineup coming up tomorrow. We live in Atlanta podcast with Jay Jackson live and The Truth Hurts, 2 p.m. here on Radio on Fire, RadioOnFire.com/live. Also, 4 p.m., the On Fire Mix Show. I will go in the mix tomorrow, 4 p.m., as I said. On Sunday, His and Hers Show, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I Want Luscious TV will be on live, 11 p.m. on Radio on Fire. On Monday, Sports on Fire will be on. And, of course, the Diamond K Show, 7 p.m. weekdays, RadioOnFire.com. Definitely, as always, advertise with us. Connect your message with our engaged audience of over 350,000 listeners and viewers per month. RadioFire.com/advertise is where you go. You can also follow the Diamond K Show on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. New programs daily. RadioFire.com, TheDiamondKShow.com. You can always support the show on Cash App, and that is $DJ Diamond K. Now, your donations, of course, help us continue to do what we do here on the program, and that's to bring you independent news, progressive opinions on politics, social issues, entertainment, and much more. For a booking or media request, djdiamondk@gmail.com. Until next time, if you see it, then you can be it. It is all about having vision, and I will see you guys tomorrow during the Mix Show, On Fire Mix Show, when I go live on the turntables.